Hello guys and girls, and welcome to this retro review. I am bored now, aka Keith, and on this video I return to the Gilmore Girls and the world of Stars Hollow. And I am now on the 4th episode of the first season, and the episode is called The Deer Hunters. Nice movie reference, but the actual the Deer Hunters of the title actually refers to Rory when she mistakenly runs into a deer when she's frantically driving to make an exam at Chiltern, or as she keeps reminding everyone, the deer actually hit her in the car. Certainly in the standout scene of the episode. And then later on she goes looking for it to try and find it and make sure it's okay. But I'll get more into that. So this episode is basically about Rory and the exam. It's her first big exam at Chiltern, and it kind of shows that she wants to make a good impression. Then she doesn't want to get behind, even though it's the first exam, and she's told at one point, you can make the grade up, it's no big deal. There's still that pressure from the start to do well in her first exam, and she's really driving herself. I think you really see what an ambitious young girl Rory is in this episode, and how that obviously then impacts on Lorelai, and how Lorelai tries to help her as much as she can. So the episode is about that sort of competitive streak in her. Also with, I think, because she's got off to the wrong foot with people like Paris in the school, and Paris is obviously super competitive, so I think that becomes a thing with Rory as well, because at one point Paris sort of mocks her about something she got in, like, I think it was a mock sort of thing, and she's kind of talking with her other friend, and kind of they got more respectable sort of grades. I think it's like in a practice sort of test. But anyway, this exam is the sort of big storyline, and ultimately how Rory doesn't make it in time because of one thing or the other. So Lorelai helps her cram all night. It's a nice bit of mother-daughter bonding that we see between them, and we see how Lorelai is willing to go that extra mile to help her study and to help her get the best result possible and be as prepared as possible. And things seem to be going quite well until they both oversleep, so they fall asleep together on the table. Again, it's a cute little scene, but they oversleep, and that's when Lorelai, classic Lorelai, just says, "Just take my car, Rory, just go for it, just get yourself to the exam." Maybe not the best idea under the circumstances, but in any case, she wants Rory to get to the exam on time, and it's a real struggle to make it at that point. So I guess Lorelai's feeling is just take the car and get there as quickly as possible. I would only hold you back. So then we have the whole deer incident when the deer runs into Rory. She's obviously really distracted and anxious and frantic and not paying proper attention on the road, and that's when the deer runs into her. And yeah, it's one of these little moments that kind of makes the show in a way what it is. Just this, how just so random it is. This thing colliding into her, and you know, out of all the things to make her late for the exam, you probably never would imagine it would be her hitting a deer, or I'll go with Rory here. The deer definitely hits her. Not that I'm blaming the deer, of course. So she basically gets there in the middle of the exam, and she's told by the teacher, Max, then sorry, you're too late. You know, you've got to go out. You'll have to make it up another time, something like that. And obviously this is like doubly embarrassing for Rory, because you know Paris is in the class, the others are in the class, and they're all, you know, kind of obviously looking at her and sort of smiling, and I mean not all of them, but Paris is, and Tristan is being his obnoxious self, calling her Mary again, and so that's kind of the final line as Rory leaves the class, where she says, "It's Rory, not Mary." So Max insists she has to leave. She can't take the exam because she's too late. And I'll talk a bit more about Max in a moment, because this is his first episode. But Lorelai later on goes to the school when she hears about what happened, and she's furious. She's, you know, I mean, Rory's obviously distraught, but Lorelai is furious on Rory's behalf that she hasn't been allowed to take this exam. She obviously, and again, this is very relatable. I think this idea of a mother and a daughter cramming for a big exam, and a mother, in a way, sometimes when things go wrong, it impacts on the mother even more, and Lorelai is just furious. She storms into the principal's office, so they have a sort of a meeting about it, Max and the principal and Lorelai. And there's some choice lines from Lorelai. You know, at one point she calls Chilton a rat hole, and she really lays into Charleston, Principal Charleston, and it's a good sort of. She even has a go at Max, because you know, says, you know, building her hopes up like this. But it's a good set to, particularly with the principal, because he sticks by his grounds. You know, he kind of says, unfortunately, you know, rules are rules. It's disappointing, but we have to stick by rules here, just like we do in society, in life and society. And he says something like, you know, I did warn Rory that it wasn't going to be easy here. And, well, he uses the word unfair, because he says, yes, it is unfair, but sometimes life's unfair, and sometimes life at Chilton is unfair. And it's a good speech, because although you might naturally take Lorelai's side and say he's being a hard ass and all the rest of it, you know, you can see where he's coming from. And I mean, just thinking about it with my experiences of this, I mean, I've never been late for an exam, but sort of handing in an essay a slight bit late, and you know, normally it's been fine, but I mean, I've had a couple of occasions where the tutor was really harsh, and you know, didn't accept it, or you know, marked it down because of it, whatever the case was. And I mean, really, when it's only a little bit late or whatever, it is a hard ass thing to do, really. Obviously, being late for an exam is a little bit different, because you've only got a limited amount of time to do it. But in any case, you could make the point then the principal is being a bit hard on Rory. But at the same time, he does have a point about rules being rules. It's the same for everyone. And, and that applies to life as well. And obviously, Rory is a 16-year-old girl. She's still coming of age. So she does have to learn these things. So it's a good little scene because you can see both sides of the argument. And I'll talk a little bit about Max now because Scott Cohen, who plays Max, this is his debut and he immediately has a bit of a sort of, well, it's not exactly a flirtation with Lorelai, but they do hit it off. There's like a parents' evening and they hit it off straight away because he seems like the cool teacher, if you like. He seems like the one who's laid back and, is what, likes Lorelai from the start, has an attachment to Rory, and he's presented as this cool guy, this quite attractive sort of guy, certainly. So there is an attraction between him and Lorelai from the start. Now, this is going to be interesting moving forward because I remember not being the biggest Max fan, and he does stick around for a while. But I'll give him a chance on this watch through. But I mean, he's got this sweater and he comes off as this quite preppy, sort of kind of nerdy, sort of middle-aged dad type character. Even though I don't even know if he is a dad, but anyway, yeah, he seems a little too good to be true in some ways, but I'll see how I feel about him this time around. I mean, he's fine in this episode. I think Scott Cohen's quite good in the role. Anyway, it's just I remember not liking the character really, but so there's this thing with him and Lorelai, and he's sort of supportive of Rory in a way no one else at Chiltern is at the moment. And so we get to the end of the episode, and it's after, Lorelai and Rory have been looking for this deer, and that's obviously quite a nice little thing. It again, I think, shows like the spirit of Stars Hollow, the fact that they would go out of their way to try and make sure this deer is alright. But they get home and there's a message from Max on the answer phone, and he essentially says, I've spoken with Headmaster Charlton, and he has said he will give Rory a chance to make up the credit at a later date, and that there will be a condition, but he's not sure what that is, but he says he's talked him into letting her make up the credit, which is a good thing. And he leaves a nice little message for Rory and for Lorelai, and he says something like Rory's stick in there sort of thing, a sort of a G up, a pep talk if you like. And at the same time he sort of leaves, and he says something like, and Lorelai, I hope I'll be seeing you soon as well, sort of thing. So getting in a nice little flirty line in there for Lorelai, but that's the end of the episode, and it's a nice sort of cap off. So that stuff works quite well. The episode in general isn't that great. It just doesn't quite have the snap, the sort of spark of what you think of Gilmore Girls when it really gets into its groove, and certainly not really a patch on the first episode. I think since that pilot, the preview, the episodes following have struggled a bit to really match that. But in any case, the other main plot is that a local critic has given a good review of the Dragonfly Inn, but Suki's upset because she didn't get a good review. Her food, essentially. And so she's desperate to make a really great risotto and invite this critic again so that he can, give it a second try and all that. So it's not the greatest plot in the world, to be honest. It doesn't really stand out. And the good news, though, is that Drower's in this episode again, the harp player, and she steals every scene she's in. So the streak continues. It's 4 episodes now, so that at least is putting a smile on my face. And she probably has the line of the episode, so she actually her harp basically hits Michelle's foot, which obviously rubs him up the wrong way. And he's complaining about his loafers, which apparently he paid like $200 or $300 for, which is insane. And loafers, I don't know where that word comes from really for shoes. That's a strange, but they're expensive shoes, whatever. And so she drops the harp on his foot, and he complains about the loafers. And the line from Drower in return is, "I wonder if Versace has a pacifier," which is genius. And the delivery is just so gold from Drower. She is just a gem of a character. I'm enjoying every scene she's in. It's just a shame she's not around long term. And the other scene she's in, which is brilliant, is then, because of course this is total Gilmore Girls Stars Hollow logic, she's playing Black Sabbath on the harp in the hotel lobby. And it's obviously not the cup of tea of the old fogies in the lobby. And Lorelai has a word, says, "I've told you not to play Black Sabbath." But it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. I love it. Drower always puts a smile on my face whenever she shows up. So she once again is the MVP of the episode. Her and probably the deer. Great cameo by the deer. And we get a little bit more of Lane. So Rory visits Lane. And, I think like Rory, Lane is like preparing for some big exam or essay or whatever the case may be. And she's there studying. And Rory brings her candy, and we get an insight again into just how strict Mrs. Kim is. Because she doesn't allow Lane like anything with sugar in, like candy and what have you. And Rory obviously tries to sneak it in, and Mrs. Kim kind of finds out of it. And she calls it chocolate coloured death. So second best line of the episode for Mrs. Kim, I think there. But it's slowly building Lane up as a character. She's a bit in and out at this point, but that scene was well done, I thought. And also Rory saying Lorelai, go to your room sort of thing, when they're having a little set to about the whole exam thing. And just a couple of other highlights. Lorelai has a B-52s t-shirt, which is just beyond adorable. She looks so great in it. And I'll pick out another line this time from Luke, because Rory's in Luke's diner, or Luke's cafe it's called, and she's obviously frantic. So this is pre the exam, and so Luke says violent pencil tossing equals pie. So that's a pretty nice line, and it's good then Luke is aware of these things and sort of knows Rory quite well. So yeah, it's not the best episode, but I do like the stuff with the exam, and the deer is just so random, and Drower again has some great scenes. So it's not horrible neither, it just doesn't have that flow of this show when it sort of gets into its best sort of thing, and the direction and stuff isn't that great, but it's okay. It's watchable, as most episodes are, really. I think the next one, episode 5, promises a lot more. Cinnamon's Wake is called, and it's actually, I won't spoil what it's about. I'll get into it more on the next review, but it does sound quite promising actually. And I know that one, it's written by Daniel Palladino, I think, who of course co-created the show with his wife. So that's coming up next time. I'll be back with another Gilmore Girls review soon. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments below if you've seen it, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.